Hi, I'm Jack. I was born in and grew up around London, and I am an avid beer drinker. In recent years, I've found myself more inclined towards craft beers. I've been asked now to come and film a documentary, speak to a couple of people about craft beer, its production, and what the scene in London is like. So we're going to go and ask a couple of brewers how they feel it's grown in recent years, the effect it's had on their companies, and the growth of the industry as a whole. So let's see how this goes. Hello, we're here at London Beer Lab in Brixton, sampling here the London Pale Ale, very pleasant and citrusy beer. It's getting me started for the day. It's 11:45 in the morning, so this is probably the best state you're going to see me in for the rest of this documentary. If you look behind me here, we have people doing a workshop, learning how to brew their own beer, and as you can see, we're in this little lab. Everything's here to make everything you need for a good, interesting and refreshing beer.
So London Beer Lab was set up 5 years ago with the aim to teach people how to make beer. So we've been doing that 5 years running, every Saturday, every Sunday. So that's about, that's several thousand batches of beer that have been brewed up here, either by ourselves experimenting with recipes or by members of the public trying to create their own beer. So that's kept us busy for the last 5 years, and then more recently we've expanded into a commercial brewery, and we brew 2,000 liters at a time there under the same branding, London Beer Lab. I used to work in the city in banking. I wasn't particularly fulfilled by my job, and I started homebrewing. And as I tried to learn how to make beer, I found that there was no classes available, no courses, which surprised me. And I thought that was a good way out of the city, basically, to try and, once I taught myself, to teach other people, and then keep experimenting, which was the main driver for me. Try and create new recipes that I really enjoy making and drinking. So the classes have been fully booked for the last 5 years. At some point, we just couldn't offer enough of them. Now there's a few other businesses providing similar experiences, but the demand, as far as we're concerned, has not dropped. So we're still essentially fully booked year round. So our best seller is probably our Tip Citra American Pale Ale. So it's a single hop Citra, slightly sweet pale ale, essentially. So that's a beer that is very hoppy, so it suits the hop heads. It's got a very kind of clean, fruity profile, so it's got a wider appeal as well with people who are not necessarily into craft beer. I have to say, when I started making my own beer, I didn't really care for hoppy beers, but the way I see it is almost like an addiction. Hops, the new varieties of hops, especially coming from the US or New Zealand, they bring incredible, complex, fruity, spicy, floral characteristics to the beer, and every variety is unique in its own way. This has really driven the creativity of the brewers over the last couple of decades, and what tends to happen is, for a same amount of hops over time, your experience tends to decrease. So most drinkers will tend to increase the dosage, and so will the brewers, to respond to the demand, and also because themselves are less sensitive to the hops as time goes by. But yeah, the characteristics they bring to the beer are just incredible, and there's more and more new varieties coming online and becoming available for brewers to play with, and that's something that's I personally have started to enjoy, massively.
Are there any sort of more unusual beers that you've produced here?
So that's one of the drivers for us, is to try and come up with new recipes, original recipes all the time. At the moment, we're working on a series of 3 ice cream beers, as we name them, because they have lactose to give them a bit of a milky sweetness. And so we've got a mango and coconut ice cream, chocolate and peanut butter ice cream, and a chocolate and vanilla ice cream coming out soon. So we're very excited about that.
That does sound good.
Very lush and very indulgent.
And how do you think the British attitude to craft beer has changed in the last, say, 5 years?
I would say that's changed dramatically. Typically, people would go for beers that were kind of middle of the road kind of things, and typically lower to medium strength. And then they discovered the variety of tastes that you can create in beer, and like a significant segment of the market has really developed a passion for the stuff and is trying to discover all the flavors that are out there, and there's so many out there nowadays. So people tend to drink smaller amounts of possibly stronger alcohol, but definitely more flavorful beers than 5 years ago.
So I'd like to also ask about your company philosophy, sort of the goals, why you do it, and what it is that's kind of keeping you on this path.
I think what has been very constant since the beginnings is trying to create new combinations of flavors, trying to make things that still excite us, that we can be passionate about, and that still have those wow effects when you have the first sip of the beer and you think that is really original, that is really flavorful, that's exactly what I want the beer to taste like. So that's kind of, this is what's driving us, is to try and make beers that we can be really excited about.
Bruno, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you very much.
Coming down.
Cheers. Hi again. We're here in Southwark this evening. It's a sustainable office ventures building where they host Toast Ale. And we're going to meet one of their founding members who's going to be talking us through their processes, their beers and what they do. Let's go.
My name's Louisa Zayan. I'm the Chief Brand Officer at Toast Ale. I started the company in 2015 with our founder Tristram Stewart, who's a campaigner and an author on food production and on the environmental impacts, in particular food waste. We launched with a pale ale and now we've got a range of 4 different beers plus a whole load of collaborations that we do with breweries all over the UK.
With regards to what you do you consider yourselves a niche brewery? And if so, do you have like a unique selling point or something that you do that others don't?
So we brew with surplus bread from bakeries that otherwise would have been wasted. The bread replaces a third of the grain bill that would otherwise be used to brew. And then all of our profits are invested into charities that are working for a more sustainable food system. But the beer itself is a standard craft beer. It tastes very similar to other great craft beers on the market, and so in that sense we're not niche. We're trying to move the whole industry so that bread never has to be wasted. So engaging the whole industry is really important to us. I think a lot of brewers already are very environmentally conscious. They're very connected to the ingredients that they're using, to the land. Water, for example, brewing beer is quite water intensive, so many brewers have already looked at improving the efficiency of water production. So I think it's a really great industry to look to as a leader in terms of addressing a global environmental problem. And yeah, really excited that Toast could be leading an aspect of that.
How do you distribute? Do you go to smaller retailers, bars, restaurants?
So when we launched, we were predominantly in small bottle shops. As we've grown, we've been able to scale up. We're now in Tesco's and Waitrose. So 2 of the big national supermarkets in the UK. We're also in a number of pub chains across the UK. We also launched in the US in 2017, so we're a year and a half old in New York, and there we're in Whole Foods, Fairway, and a load of really cool little restaurants and bars.
So what are your thoughts on the hop forward trend that's sort of influenced craft beer making a lot recently?
Yeah, personally, I really love hoppy beers. So I am really loving the trend. Within our range, we do have hoppier beers following that trend. There are also consumers that don't like the hoppier beers so much, so we do want to have something that appeals to everybody, but the hoppier ones are definitely my favourite.
Yeah, mine too. Can't deny that. They're fantastic. How do you think the British attitude to craft beer and the taste as well differ from that in the US?
Interesting. I think the British tastes are actually moving much closer to the US. There's been a trend in the US for much stronger beers, and like we were talking about, much hoppier beers, but we're certainly seeing that coming to the UK as well. And I think there's this similar excitement from UK drinkers to be enjoying that wide range of beers. But yeah, I think typically US tends to be a little bit stronger.
So how do you think attitudes and trends in beer culture have changed in the last decade?
That's a difficult one. I guess as the craft industry has emerged, it's certainly true for me. I think for a lot of women as well, it's much more accessible. Part of it is about the emergence of craft and diversity and experimentation with flavours. So typically for Toast, approximately 60% of our engaged audience are female, which is different to how that would have been 10 years ago, certainly with beer.
What are some of the stranger craft beers that you've either made here or tried? Is there something that really springs to mind?
There have been a lot of really interesting flavours. The sort of emergence of strawberry milkshake, double IPAs, really fantastic tasting beers. We're about to do one with a brewery based in Windsor and Eton Brewery, called Toast and Marmalade, because we'll be using surplus oranges in that. I think it's true for the craft beer industry that people are more open to experimenting with the ingredients and creating some really unusual taste profiles.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed.
Very nice to meet you.
Cheers.